This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. This week, robotaxis that will wait for you, solar panels on LA canals, more on the Alberta beef with Netflix, and Tesla accepts Bitcoin. Plus, we have a new price target for Tesla from ARK Invest and the world's fastest three-wheeled EV. And you know what, Brian? Ronald Reagan once said that trees pollute more than cars, and you know, he was wrong. However, I've learned today that in the future, he may be right. That, plus the lightning round. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. And then the other big news for this week is that I received my folding electric bicycle that we talked about on last week's episode.
I can't believe that. That came quickly. Are you excited?
Yeah, it just came yesterday, so I've barely had a chance to even ride it, but it seems good so far. I'm liking it. I do want to plug the website that I bought it from. It's called o2bikes.com. They didn't sponsor us or anything, but I wanted to mention it because when I found them on the internet, they didn't seem to be a particularly well-established player. So I was slightly worried that they were going to steal my money and not send me a bike. But they totally did. They sent me a bike.
Brian Stockton has received his e-bike. Did you open it?
I opened it. I put it together, except for the fenders. It came with fenders, but they're kind of finicky to put on. Yeah, I just really went for one quick ride on it. It's got a throttle, so just put down the throttle, got to about 25 kilometers an hour, which is the advertised speed of it. And took out the seat post, so it's got the battery in the seat post.
Cool.
So I took that out and charged it up, although it came pretty much fully charged. And it doesn't seem like it's not a super high quality bike or anything, but it's about half the price of the other folding electric bikes that I was looking at. There's a Canadian company. If you're wealthy, I might recommend checking out Carbo Bikes. They make these folding carbon fiber bikes out of Montreal. I think their factory's in China, but it's a Montreal company. And that was a bike I was looking at and really wanted because it's a lightweight folding bike, but about twice the price of this Fido D11 is the bike that I bought, and it was about 1,529 Canadian dollars plus some tax and shipping.
Also, if you're wealthy, send us money. So you're happy to get it then. You're excited? You think it's usable?
Yeah, no, it seems good so far, but I'll have to keep, working on it, and we can kind of check in again next week, and I'll give you more information.
Was it fun? Yeah. You thinking like, okay, yes, this was a good idea. Electric bikes. Yes, this is going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. But of course, the weather's kind of cooled down again. So it's not exactly bike weather. We're still, hovering around zero. So I actually I had to mail a letter.
You mailed a letter?
Yeah. So I took it this morning. Yeah, I've written it twice. I took it this morning to the mailbox, which is just a couple of blocks away. And I didn't put on gloves, and my hands were so cold by the time I came back. 25 kilometers an hour without gloves on in cold weather is nasty.
That's a mistake a man your age shouldn't have made, Brian. You should not have made that. But you've learned lessons in your life, have you not?
The mailbox, it's just so close, and I've got an electric bike. I'll be there quickly. I couldn't possibly get cold by the time
I've got kids that I try to teach. Fine, go out without your jacket, learn your lesson. And obviously you did not. So
I did not. No.
That's exciting, though. It's a folding electric bike. You want to be able to put it in the back of your Model 3 and take it to the lake or wherever you're going on vacation and things like that. How about you send me a link and I'll put it on our Twitter feed, Clean Energy Pod on Twitter. And just so if people are interested, they can see, if for nothing else, to get a good mental picture of the bike that Brian bought.
Yeah, and this website, o2bikes.com, they appear to be the North American, like the Canada and U.S. dealer for the Fido bikes. So I think you have to buy from them if you're buying in North America.
I see. Well, I brought out my bike, which is almost exactly 1 year old. I ordered it a year ago. I got it like April, let's say 3rd or 1st, or I don't know, first few days of April, and it was snowing. but I still went out and rode it like you did. But, Brian, I wore gloves. And not only did I wear gloves, I wore thick gloves, as thick as they come, because, well, I know what it's like riding bike in cold weather, and I'm getting old. I don't produce heat myself anymore. Yeah, I took it out, and because we hit 21 degrees the other day, and I thought, I gotta take this out. It wasn't scheduled to be 21 degrees, but it went past the forecast high quite a bit, and had a pleasant ride. Although, if you hit ice at this time of the year, where there's still sort of snow melting, it can be very dangerous. So I tried to hack my e-bike.
Oh, yeah.
We have many people. I have a review on our YouTube channel of this e-bike that I bought off of Amazon.ca, the Canadian Amazon, last year. Quite happy with it. Did some modifications to it to change the forks out and things like that. But yeah, it's a fabulous bike. And people on YouTube, where my review was, there was, I think we're up to like 17,000 people have watched that review. So I'm going to put some more reviews on because people like reviews apparently. And it was the reviews that helped me. There was only 2 reviews out at the time that helped me buy the bike. I probably wouldn't have bought it without the reviews on YouTube, and there was only a couple of them. So yeah, somebody on our page told me how to hack it. So I hacked it. And the way you hack it is you lie to it and tell it that you have smaller wheels than you do. So then your speed is not accurate, but it thinks it's going slower than it is because the magnet doesn't go around as much, or it goes around more on a 20-inch wheel than it would a 27.5-inch wheel. So, but I didn't feel like I was going fast. I couldn't tell how fast I was going, but I'm an incredibly large man, and I just don't think my bike can handle, it's a 30, I think it's a 36 volt, if I remember correctly, bike, and it doesn't have the 350 watt motor. It doesn't have the oomph to drag my fat ass around that fast, but yeah, I just wanted to try it out.
Yeah, apparently my bike can be hacked as well. I've seen YouTube videos where you can, like right now it's limited at 25 kilometers an hour, but I think I can get up to 32 if I, press some certain buttons in a cheat code on the little display there. So I'll do that and get back to
Good, because I think that's a good, I think 32 is a good speed. That's what mine does. And as a man of advancing age and delicate, brittle body, as padded as it is, I still brake quite easily, and 32 is a good speed.
Well, if we were smart, I would maybe, ride the bike up to your house one day.
Sure.
And we could, maybe do a review if we can stay socially distanced and not kill each other.
After we get vaccinated, I think we should do a podcast from our e-bikes. Just ride around town on our e-bikes, do our podcast.
Yeah, so they had the drive-through vaccination clinic, which I think we talked about last week. And the age kept dropping. The eligibility age for the drive-through clinic kept dropping, and it got down to 58. And I'm 56, but it got down to 58, and then they ran out of vaccine.
Yes.
So no vaccine for me yet.
Now, I'm a couple years younger than you, so I have to wait. But they were doing it almost 1 year per day. I was sort of calculating, maybe it was a bit more sometimes. It was depending on how bad the press was on the AstraZeneca vaccine. So I was hoping for more bad press. Then I got good press and the lines became longer. I thought, oh, darn it, they're going to run out. But if they got really bad press for a while, then maybe I could get in. Anyway, so now I'm dependent on, by the way, everyone, they've shut down our city. We're like one of the worst places in North America now per capita. It's terrible. We've got variants galore. 90%
for COVID,
85 or 90%, the UK variant floating around here and spreading quickly. So they've mostly shut us down, although they're kind of not shutting down. Are they shutting down restaurants completely?
Restaurants are shutting down in a couple of days.
But not
you
gyms?
Can still get takeout.
Gyms are somehow still open, I think. Gyms and churches can have 30%, which is never good.
Maybe, yeah.
So yeah, my kids are home today. One was optional to keep home, and she missed the bus, so I said, fine, just keep home, because half of her class isn't going this week, even though elementary schools are in. And yeah, anyway, I was a race between me dying and not, doing episode 58 and getting that damn vaccine. So, but listen, the United States, hello, United States, I know we have listeners there. We'll get to a letter from one of you later. The United States is sending Canada some vaccine because the AstraZeneca vaccine is not approved in the United States yet. and they have extra vaccine sitting around. So they're sending us 1.5 million doses, and they're sending about 3.5 to Mexico. And so we'll get about 45,000 here in Saskatchewan, and they're going to do down to 50, they said yesterday. And yeah, that was a part that I missed. I watched the evening news, and they said they're going to go down to 50. Plus, they're also going to open up other vaccination clinics. They're just doing it in our town because of the extreme COVID outbreak here, but they are going to spread it to other towns. However, the other towns are only going to go down to 60, and we're going to go down to 50. So we're going to get the bulk of those vaccines when they come, possibly in a week. I can see myself, Brian, having a shot by Easter.
Well, we have a sponsor, James. For the first time ever, we have a sponsor for the podcast.
You're kidding.
No.
Is it Bill Gates?
I'm not kidding. Yeah, Bill Gates has sponsored us to talk about the vaccine so that everyone will get the vaccines and then the microchip so that he can control us all.
All right. Who's our sponsor, Brian Stockton?
Our sponsor is District Brewing, which is a local beer company. They listened to the show. They thought it was fantastic. They believe in clean energy, and they're working themselves to try and get a lower carbon footprint for the brewery. And they, messaged us and said, hey, we'd like to sponsor the podcast. So, we've hit the big time now, James.
Well, are you drinking some right now?
Through the miracle of sound effects. I'm drinking one right now.
Right, sound effects.
I mean, it is, 10 o'clock in the morning as we record. So, no, I'm technically not drinking one right now. But, so they wanted us to talk about their new delivery service, which is called Brewzer, Brewzer. And it's a website or an app. You can get an app on your phone and click a couple of buttons on your phone and get beer delivered to your house. This is amazing.
Now, I understand you've done this.
I have done this, and it totally worked. They delivered beer to my home. It was great.
And it was cold. How did they keep it cold?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, they delivered it cold. I mean, maybe it's easier in the wintertime. Maybe they just leave the van parked outside. I don't know, but it was delivered cold and totally worked. And this is for our province of Saskatchewan, for Regina and Saskatoon. So anybody outside of our province is out of luck, I'm afraid. But they have stuff from themselves, District Brewing, but also Last Mountain Distillery and other kind of local brewers. So it's actually quite a large selection of beer that you can get. And if you are listening to this podcast and you want to order some beer, please put in the promo code for the podcast, which is the word environment. And you just have to put that in the notes section. There's a delivery instructions section. So just put in the promo code environment and you'll get some kind of a free gift, apparently.
Will it be a bobblehead of you?
Maybe, yes.
Okay. Well, that's exciting, Brian. What's the name of the website again?
It's District Brewing is the name of the company. And then it's Brewzer.com, Brewzer, which is also the name of the app. So you can get the app in your favorite app store or go to that website and order some beer.
Excellent. Well, thank you, District Brewing. Brian, autonomous taxis, I've discovered in the Phoenix area now. These are the ones that are getting tested down there. They now have the Google spinoff Waymo, which is doing a lot of testing without drivers in some cases. There's actually no drivers. So if you're one of these people who thinks that autonomous taxis are not coming, well, they're here technically in Phoenix, in a geographically fenced area of Phoenix. And what they're doing now is that they will stop, and this is what I've always assumed about robotaxis, is that they'll be able to drop you off. Say you're picking up a bag of cocaine somewhere. They'll be able to just stop there. Or if you're picking up beer, everyone likes beer. You could do whatever, if you're dropping off, you do errands all the time. You're dropping things off to people. You're dropping off your radar detector to people. That's just one example I could think of. The thing will wait for you. And unlike a cab driver or a taxi driver, they're not going to get, start honking at you because no one's getting paid. It's just the car. It's just the car is out of service. So, one of the things that they're working on is, and this is something I also assumed, was that in order for the service to work, it has to be readily available to you in 30 seconds, which I love. So basically, they're going to have more cars than they need, but it doesn't matter because there's not a person in it. I'm sorry if you're a taxi driver listening to this, and you're going to be out of a job in a few years, but that's how it's going to work. People think that it's just going to be like an Uber, but it's not. It's going to be better than Uber because you will be able to stop.
Yeah, but they are going to have lots of vehicles for it to work. Or like if Tesla turns on the switch and turns on their robotaxi network, if you're in a major city like San Francisco, you just can't have just a handful of cars because, people are going to want to open up the app, press a button and, get the car there right away. So, they're going to have thousands of cars available before they actually start this.
Right. And that's why they'll roll it out to a smaller number of people at first. Now, I envision it working like this in our city because we live in a small city in the prairies that is spread out and not compact, the opposite of San Francisco. I would imagine that one of those cars would be parked down the street, just sitting there. It's not putting any miles on it. The computer's running. Maybe it's in a standby mode. It wakes up. It can communicate with the headquarters and be here in 30 seconds. And there'll be more of them on the street during, rush hour when people are coming home from work.
Yeah, well, and I imagine the computer algorithm will figure out where's a good place for them to stop and wait. So they'll know eventually, oh, if I park on this street, I'm going to be within a certain number of customers. So, this is a good place to wait.
So I don't know how it's going to work in San Francisco because they're going to have parking. They can't have places to park like here. Maybe they'll buy a parkade because nobody else will be using the parkade, and they'll just park their electric cars in there, and some of them will roam endlessly around. But
well, yeah, maybe they would just drive around rather than park, right? Like even if there's nobody in them, just constantly keep driving, maybe.
To an extent, yes, but then you don't want them to run out of juice, and you don't want them to cause traffic. The Waymo app now has an add a stop feature option, if you could. Riders using the Waymo One autonomous ride service can pick up a friend or some groceries without having to reorder a car at each stop. So that's great. You order a car and you say, I'm just, this is not my destination. I'm adding a stop, and it'll tell you how much it's going to be. So it doesn't matter how long you stay in there. It's the same price. It's not going to be, oh, I'm anxious because I'm too long and the meter's running. It'll just be the same price. So yeah, it's different than a traditional taxi cab, and you don't have to worry about the driver sitting around. So that's great, and it'll work well for airports and things like that. I'm looking forward to that. I think I know we all say we love driving, but I think I would actually use that. I would have maybe we go from a 2-car family to a 1-car family. Certainly, my son who's going to university next year would, he'd be better off buying. If it was possible, we'd be better off buying a subscription to this and not buying a clunker of a car, which costs, it's $100 a month just for insurance here, and it's more elsewhere.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, just being able to send your car home if you need it. Like you can drive to work and then send it home, and then someone else in your family can use the car. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, it's time for our new segment that we have now. What do you think?
What do you think?
Every week, I read stories that I am curious to what you think, Brian, about these stories, and I look forward to them. And though we do talk during the week, I save these for our show to ask you on our show, what do you think? What do you think about the feud between Bernie Sanders and Elon Musk, the so-called feud, or the media likes to make it that way?
Yeah, so Bernie Sanders tweeted something about, billionaires being immoral. I can't remember what he said, but Elon Musk replied that he's saving up his money to make human consciousness multiplanetary. And I think, if you don't follow these things regularly, you probably read that and thought that he was either joking or insane. But that's actually what he's going to do with his money. He wants to move civilization out beyond Earth so that, if we screw up the planet too badly, humans will still exist.
After Senator Bernie Sanders criticized him on Twitter last week for his multi-billion-dollar fortune, Tesla founder Elon Musk tweeted, quote, "I am accumulating resources to help make life multiplanetary and extend the light of consciousness to the stars."
Well, I still don't know what that means, Brian. I thought you might explain. Just putting humanity
I think I
out
just
there?
did, didn't I? What's
just putting humanity beyond our planet, or just spreading the love of us?
Yeah, well, it's entirely possible that life on Earth can be extinguished at some point.
Sure.
But if there is an outpost on even just the moon, but also Mars, then we have the possibility to escape, an extinction level event on the planet.
Absolutely, and I'm willing to freeze my sperm to help in that effort. Tesla Energy Plan is launching in Australia to lower electricity rates with a virtual power plant. And I wonder what you think, Brian, because I don't really understand what this is. Do you understand what that is?
Well, I didn't read the details, but it's just a further deployment of batteries and software to just help manage the power that they have in Australia. And we mentioned this many times before. It's a market that's ripe for this because their rates are sky high. Their grid is not particularly robust. So if you go in there with a bunch of batteries and software to control it all, you can basically bring everybody's power rates down by managing the power that is there in the grid.
Okay. He was quite concerned, I understand, with people choosing between keeping the lights on and, buying food for their kids, and decided to do something about it. I mean, Australian electricity can be the most expensive in the world, I think, at times.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it's about triple what we pay for our electricity here in Canada.
So lithium and other battery mineral experts are saying that they expect a 30 to 50% EV market share in 2030, and that would be the upper limit, which I know you're going to be disappointed about. But do you think that could be the upper limit because of just extraction limitations in the next 9 years?
Well, I mean, I'm not one of the world's leading experts on, extraction of minerals, but that still seems a little pessimistic and too low. If there's money to be made, people are going to find a way to extract these minerals, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, and all you have to do is look at other markets, because Europe is taking off. There's different countries in Europe, Germany and different places that are already blowing past that. I mean, some of them are plug-in hybrids, granted, but still they're cars that are choosing to run mostly on electricity. All right, we'll move beyond that. Breaking news, as you know, that Bitcoin can now be used to buy a Tesla. And that happened fast. Elon was interested in Bitcoin. Tesla was interested in Bitcoin, and now you can use Bitcoin to buy a Tesla. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and this is in the U.S. only right now. I don't know. I don't think it's it's definitely newsworthy because this is the first time a major company like this has offered it. But I don't think it's particularly different from buying something in Canadian dollars or in Swedish kroner. I mean, there's all kinds of different currencies. It's a first for a cryptocurrency, and it may lead to further. I mean, one day we might not even use our national currencies. We might just use cryptocurrencies. But in terms of buying a car, like I say, it's really no different than, buying it in one of the many hundreds of currencies that already exist.
Why not PayPal?
I don't know. Why not PayPal?
Listen, if you're a drug cartel leader, kingpin, and you got your Bitcoin in unlaundered money, and you could just run out and buy a Tesla now, is that why? I mean, what's the appeal of it other than just promoting something that's modern?
Yeah, it will appeal to that subculture that loves Bitcoin. It's maybe not a huge number of people, but there's cryptocurrency fans all over the world, and I imagine they're going to be excited about this, and it might, convince them to buy a Tesla where they weren't thinking about it.
I bet it was. I got a nephew who's all Bitcoiny, bought early. He's a tech guy.
Oh yeah,
yeah, bought very early, but then it sunk quite a bit. I remember it was sinking one Christmas when we were watching it go down. This has been another edition of What Do You Think?
What do you think?
Maybe while we're sort of talking about Tesla and supply vehicles, the price target from ARK Invest. So ARK Invest is a famous Wall Street firm that specializes in disruptive innovation, and they have a new price target for Tesla stock that sits at around $3,000 a share by 2025. Right now, it's about $650. So this has been some of the big news in electric vehicles this week, and somewhat controversial, I guess, but they were correct on their last crazy price target. It's now at the price that they predicted it would be at a few years ago. So they were right before. Perhaps they'll be right again. But there's so many of these other factors, like you were talking about. Is there going to be enough, minerals? Is there, it really comes down to battery supply. And Tesla has stated they're aiming for 3 terawatt hours of battery production by 2030. But yeah, can they actually achieve that because of all of the other kind of roadblocks of, getting enough minerals, getting enough battery supply? But I think the one thing that I just realized this week that makes their price target seem more possible or reasonable, Tesla has the ability to sort of spread their battery supply over so many different platforms that I think it makes them, fairly resistant to a lack of demand. Like right now, Tesla can't make cars fast enough. Fine. In the future, presumably at some point there will be enough supply, and then they'll have to worry about demand. And, if they were suddenly able to make 60 million cars, well, they probably couldn't sell 60 million cars because, they'd have a demand problem. But what they have is a lot of different product lines. So I think they're going to be, supply constrained probably till 2030 because, whatever batteries they can make, they'll be able to sell. And if, say, demand drops for the Model Y, well, then they can shoot those batteries over to the Cybertruck. Mm-hmm. And if demand for the Cybertruck drops, they can shoot those batteries over to grid storage and then home storage. They have so many places they can put these batteries that it really just depends on, can they actually deliver on, what they talked about at Battery Day and actually make this insane number of batteries. And if they can make them, they'll be able to sell them.
Yeah, I really don't know what to think about all this, because you look at the EV expansion in the world, which is expected over the next few years, and and we're talking buses and school buses and everything else, and all the battery plants that are coming online. That's all we really talk about is meeting the cars. But can you imagine how insatiable the grid demand is if the price was right? I mean, it is in some markets, and the lower it gets, the more markets it becomes, important. So it's just like infinite. It's inconceivably infinite. It's just so many batteries that could be used if there's no better technology in the next few years that comes along.
And again, if they, hit some sort of a peak with demand for cars, then absolutely just start funneling batteries to grid storage. And as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, Tony Seba and his prediction that, solar, wind, and batteries is basically the only, grid system that makes sense anymore. Hydroelectric, nuclear, they're all going to be dwarfed by solar, wind, and batteries because, the price is dropping. So yeah, as you say, the demand for those grid batteries is going to be insatiable. And if Tesla can make them, if anybody, really all of these battery factories around the world, whatever people can make, they're going to be used.
Energy journalist Markham Hislop in a video last week said that he interviewed Tony Seba in 2017 and was talking about his prediction for autonomous vehicles, and said it was going to be here by 2020 and that he was off by a few years. And I disagree with that. I think when Tony Seba says, gives a date, he's not saying, and you will be using this ubiquitously across all platforms. No, that's when the price hits and the technology hits, converges. That's when the seed is planted. So yes, I mean, it's actually happening last year in Phoenix. There was driverless taxis. And so that's when it hits. How it develops from there depends on regulation and pricing. And the technology has a bit further to go, I imagine. A lot of people are betting against Tesla in that race, in the autonomous driving. I mean, is that one of the big secrets here that ARC is betting on?
Yeah, that's certainly part of their bet in terms of their price strategy. They believe that Tesla's in the lead and that they're going to, get there first. Remains to be seen. Nobody knows. but that would tend to be my guess as well, just because they have so many. They've bet on vision only. They're working on a vision only system, but they've got over 1 million cars on the road collecting data for them. So once you're working with these artificial intelligence machines, they're just insatiable in terms of their need for data. And I don't know, once you got enough data, theoretically, you can solve it.
Brian, in 1981, President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, you may recall him, think hair, former actor, two-term president, ringing a bell, coming across? Yeah.
Yeah, Bedtime for Bonzo, he was the star.
He, in a Republican douchebaggery spirit, said that trees cause more pollution than automobiles do. He, of course, was wrong. This was 1981, and cars were producing a lot of pollution. However, there is a report out, a study from UC Berkeley, that says that trees do pollute, and in the future, they will pollute more than cars as we move to EVs.
And is this because you have forest fires and they burn and they release carbon?
It is not. This is just trees pollute. My world is upside down. It's nuts. The LA basin contains more than 18 million trees, and on average, they're now responsible for 25% of the area's particulate emissions.
What?
Think allergies, think pollens, think things like that. And
Okay.
with vehicle emissions declining, plants are emerging as the major source of particulate hydrocarbon emissions, also known as PM 2.5. Now, this author of the study says, I'm not suggesting we get rid of plants, but I want people who are thinking about large-scale planting to pick the right trees. Yes, there's going to be green trees and less green trees, not literally, but some trees will pollute more than other trees. This is what Ronald Cohen says. He is an atmospheric chemist at UC Berkeley and professor of chemistry. They should pick low-emitting trees instead of high-emitting trees. Now, Brian, this is not going to be a problem for us because we're in Canada. However, in hot climates, such as Southern California, this is an issue. And trees will actually be more polluting than cars as cars clean up their act.
But it's not the same pollution,
Oh, it is.
but it is a pollution.
It's particular. Well, okay. So this is not, we're not talking about greenhouse gases here. We're talking about physical lung hurting pollution. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not a global warming thing. This is particulate emissions from trees. They combined with human produced nitrogen oxides to form aerosols, especially when it's hot. So it contributes to the problem. So what he's saying is we've got to think about what kinds of trees we're planting. And I'm sorry, my mind is blown. It's just to think that you have to pick a better tree for less pollution. It's just what's going on.
Well, here's a question for you. So, it's a dream of mine to maybe build a new cottage out at our cottage property, and it would be hopefully like a net zero building and very, environmentally friendly. But should I put in a fireplace? Like, should I put in a wood burning stove, to heat it, which is what a lot of people do in a kind of a rural or a cottage property. But I can't decide. And it'd be nice to have, a fireplace or, something like that in a cottage by the lake. But is it the right thing to do now in terms of carbon?
Well, they say it's renewable, right? I mean, that's the argument. You could plant another tree. The tree gets replaced. The tree sucks up carbon. And it's a somewhat small scale. I think there has been studies in the wintertime that when it gets very cold and the air is still and dense, that in big cities in Canada, you have everybody, like Montreal, their air quality has gone down because everybody was burning fires. At the lake, that's not going to be a problem because it's spread out. You do have a lake on one side, after all.
Yeah, it's technically carbon neutral, I think, because the tree absorbs carbon out of the air, and then if you burn it, it just releases the same carbon. But, it's 2021, and we want to be capturing as much carbon in those trees and not releasing it. So I'm not sure what to do.
I would look into it more. Certainly, I think that you'll find that it is a net negative, but not as much as burning coal or something like that. Something that's, just a fossil. would you heat the house or the cabin exclusively on wood?
Well, probably not, because that would be a little bit complicated. But certainly lots of people do that with a rural property. If you put in the right kind of wood-burning stove, and especially if it's a well-insulated house, it would be fairly easy to heat with wood. But no, I think we would likely just have it as a supplement or as a just sort of a nice feature.
Yeah, and wood pellets are supposed to be popular because they're waste wood, right? As far as I understand from sawmills, that would get wasted anyway and get. Well, I know people are doing that a lot, and it's I don't, I'm not a wood chopper. If you have some thoughts on this, give us an email at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. That's cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, and you can be just like our letter of the week, Brian. We have a big feedback letter here, our biggest in history, and I want to thank you for doing that. Great show as always. Love listening to you guys. Now I should just stop there because that's a good email right there. That's quality stuff. Just wanted to share with you the fact that a nuclear bomb actually was detonated in the United States here to frack for natural gas in Colorado in 1969. It was called Project Rulison. Rulison. There's very good account of it in Rachel Maddow's book, Blowout, which is page 11 to 20. You don't even have to get deep into the book to understand that. So here's another tidbit of nuclear information in that account. Project Rulison fell under a specialized subset of Atoms for Peace program, a bold attempt to harness the power of atomic bombs for industrial purposes. Not just atomic energy, but the actual weapons themselves. Just so they're not wasting them, sitting around, not throwing them at the Ruskies. They thought, well, what can we do with these? So this operation was named after a passage in the Bible, Isaiah 2:4. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. The AEC wisely chose plowshares, not pruning hooks, for the project name. The famed nuclear physicist Edward Teller was a big champion of plowshares, and especially the possibilities it presented for geographical engineering, which sounds scary when you're talking about nuclear weapons. There were plans afoot in the early 60s to use nuclear bombs for strip mining, open pit mining, and quarrying, for redirecting the course of rivers and carving out giant man-made lakes. Sounds like children are coming up with these ideas. For a deep water port in Alaska, a sea level canal in Israel, even a new Panama Canal. Let's just blow the shit out of Central America and come up with a new canal. When you really opened your mind to the possibilities, what couldn't be done with nuclear bombs, it says. So scary stuff. I highly recommend Blowout by Rachel Maddow. It is a very telling account of the fossil fuel business, particularly oil and gas. And this comes from Eric Wolsk in the United States. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
Yes, and of course, this is a reference to what we were talking about last week, which was the Netflix film called Bigfoot Family, which was in the news because there's an environmental message in this children's film because the Bigfoot is the good guy and the bad guys are an oil and gas company that want to use a nuclear explosion to extract oil. And, lots of people in the oil and gas industry were upset, particularly from Alberta, where they have this government-sponsored whatever to complain about such things. But, they were saying, oh, the oil and gas industry, you're painting us as villains. This is crazy. We don't set off nuclear explosions. But it turns out, as this letter testifies, that this was actually a thing. So yeah, I have the Wikipedia article here for Project Rulison, which tells a bit more about it. And yeah, they indeed set off a 40 kiloton nuclear bomb in Colorado, and it worked. The test succeeded in liberating large quantities of natural gas. However, the resulting radioactivity left the gas contaminated and unsuitable for applications such as cooking and heating homes.
Humankind at its best. I have to confess, Brian, we had to look this up to confirm it. It was so out of the park that we had to double check it and make sure we weren't giving out false information. But he is absolutely correct. And how do we not know about that? I think that's a question to ask. How do we not know about that? How?
It does. Yeah, it seems strange that this is not common knowledge.
I mean, it's in the middle of the United States. I didn't know that. I mean, who knew that?
No, that's not too far even from where we live.
I know. We're probably suffering from radiation from it. The natural gas was contaminated with radiation. They couldn't even do anything with it. I don't know. I don't know. Brian, you wanted to talk about the world's fastest three-wheeled EV that's coming out, and it's from a Canadian company, is it not?
Yeah, this is a company called Daymac, and they're known apparently for like those elderly people mobility scooters. So they've never done anything like this, but they want to put out a three-wheeled, two-seater electric car. They've opened pre-orders. This is not a thing that's going to happen anytime soon. Like this is a couple of years in the future, at least, when these will actually be available. But they have a working prototype. This is a company that has experience in electric vehicles, albeit, elderly person scooter vehicles. But they say it's going to be very fast, 1.8 seconds, 0 to 60.
Ooh.
So that might even be faster than the Teslas, but it's a much smaller vehicle, sort of, more like motorcycle size, but can fit two people.
That is faster than my body can handle. I know that for a fact. I think.
Yeah, that would be unnerving, I think.
3.8 seconds. That's what my head can handle. And it's getting less with time.
Oh, okay.
Because my brain just bounces around back there, hits the back of my skull, and I get woozy and vomity. And yeah, I'm not, that's one of the main reasons why I'm not flying fighter jets right now is I just don't have the constitution for it.
Yeah, well, you need one of those MIPS rotational brain protection bike helmets that we talked about earlier in the year.
We've sold hundreds of those. And you joked last year that we should have had an Amazon revenue link for my e-bike because so many people were going. Well, I've got comment after comment. Bought the bike thanks to you. Love it. I could have bought lunch for both of us. A fancy lunch.
Yeah, and I might buy one of those expensive bike helmets now that I've got an e-bike, just to,
That's not a bad idea, especially if you hack it to go past 25 kilometers an hour and you're riding around doing podcasts. So, yeah, I just, if you want to contact us, I'm just going to go over that again because Eric, we had a great letter from you. It's going to be tough to beat that letter. Not only was it a long complimentary letter that boosted the egos of Brian and I, which is very necessary, it gave us information that blew our minds. So thank you, Eric. And cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, cleanenergypod on Twitter, and speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow if you'd like to leave us a voicemail message, which would be even wilder. Coming up soon is the lightning round. We'll clean up the rest of the week's news and clean energy and go through them quickly and make sure that nothing is left behind. Brian, I have an interesting stat about water that gets used by power plants, and something that we don't often think about. So coal uses 2 Olympic-size swimming pools of water per megawatt hour. Okay? I don't know. I have a very small solar installation on my roof, and I've got like 11 megawatt hours over 3 years. So that's nothing. That's just me. So 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools for coal. Nuclear uses 1.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Usually they're by an ocean or something and not like a freshwater lake or anything. And hopefully it goes back in the atmosphere and falls down, and that's not so bad. But it's almost as much as coal. So yes, both of those things are boiling water to make electricity. And even birds get killed when they fly over the steam. People don't realize that. Natural gas,
wow,
aka fossil gas, uses half a swimming pool per megawatt hour. And solar and wind, about 0. So that's interesting to me. Anyway. Also this week, Rivian is planning new electric chargers that they're spreading around the country, including in Canada, but not on the prairies. What do you think about that? They're having a corridor in Alberta, but it's kind of like the Tesla, first wave of Tesla chargers. They're not coming to Saskatchewan. A lot of them are actually what they call waypoint chargers. Like if you stop at a grocery store or a gas station or a restaurant and they're level 2, they're not part of the Adventure Network, which is trying to get their things on freeways and national parks and things like that. The new chargers will be located with shops and restaurants, and 25 miles an hour of charging, which is about 50 kilometers or 40 kilometers? Something like that. Basically what I get at home, practically what you get at home.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to have those chargers in Alberta with the Rocky Mountains if it seems to be part of their brand. So, I'm still assuming most people are going to use these trucks to just go to the grocery store, but they want them in places like, the Rocky Mountains because it's part of their brand.
Yeah, and reminder that Joe Biden wants 500,000 new EV chargers by 2030. I still think that EV chargers are easy. The only thing is that you kind of, if you build them, they will come. You have to build them before the demand is there, and maybe you need government intervention for that. It's just one of those things. So also, before we go to the lightning round, there's been a study that says, all the canals in Los Angeles, you've seen them in movies like Terminator 2 and things like that. Well, installing solar panels over these canals could save California, which is always short of water, many millions of gallons of water. And installing the solar panels over the California's network of canals, which, by the way, go way, way beyond LA. They go into the vineyards and places like that for irrigation, could save the state 63 billion gallons of water and produce 13 gigawatts of renewable power every year, according to a feasibility study. When you put the solar panels on water, it stops evaporation. So I assume that's how they save most of the water. And then also, the solar panels work better in hot weather. Because remember, they lose efficiency at 25 degrees and above, which is, on my roof, anything above 15 degrees on a sunny day, because it gets hotter up there. Do you know that my solar panels, this is something we haven't talked about in a long time, you know how my solar panels do quite well melting in warm weather? Like, what was it, minus 19 or 21 or something? It was a ridiculously cold temperature last winter that I had melting. Like, it was 17 that happened 2 or 3 times, minus 17. Which is very cold.
And we're talking about the
snow on my solar panels or the ice or whatever's there. And it did it even at a colder temperature this year. My house is very high and there's not much around it. And it gets very windy here. So I think what they did, the solar installers, they put this little mesh around the edges of the solar panels along the outer perimeter of the panel installation. And that is to diffuse the wind. Well, I'm wondering now if that's not helping with the heat buildup underneath the panels, because it's sort of sheltering them underneath. They're not completely wide open, and of course it gets hotter in the summertime when you do that. But they did that so that you couldn't get lift from the wind underneath to lift them up, that it would diffuse that. And it also cleans up the installation a little bit on the edges. So I just wonder if that had something to do with it. Anyway, that's an interesting idea, putting solar panels on water. And I forget, I always think, why put solar panels on water? Like, it seems like you have to make them float and do extra work to make them happen. But they are, and the cooling effects, I mean, you may get more efficiency out of your panels, and sometimes there's benefits to keeping that water cool by not evaporating it. So that's my thoughts, Brian. No thoughts from you. Nothing at all. Zero. Nothing at all. Then we're moving to the lightning round.
No, that's good.
The Clean Energy Show lightning round. Well, it's the lightning round. We're going to clean up all the headlines that we didn't get to, move through them quickly, make sure nothing is missed. Audi is starting production of the Q4 e-tron electric SUV. Any comments from you, Stockton?
No. They, their last car was kind of okay. High price, low range. So, the more cars they put out, the better they'll get.
Porsche's updating the software for older Taycan electric cars, but they have to go to the dealership. They're supposed to do over the air, but you have to go to the dealership. Disappointing.
Yeah, I didn't know that maybe they can fix that in the future.
Elon Musk confirms the new Tesla Model S is a 7-seater despite no option yet online. Your thoughts? 7-seater worth it?
Yeah, so the very first Tesla Model S, the 2012, and I saw one in person. You can open up the trunk and there's a couple of seats back there for kids. But it wasn't a very popular option, so they discontinued it. Apparently it's back. Maybe they've improved it a bit. Maybe there's a bit more room because it really only worked for small children. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of fun that's another option coming.
The Ford Escape plug-in hybrid is on track for a 2021 release. That's this year. This year, Brian. That is a popular vehicle, so I'm glad to see it on lots with a plug-in option, and maybe some people will go for that option with the various rebates around. Not too generous in Canada.
Yeah, though there's millions of Ford Escapes around here. You just can't escape them. They're everywhere.
So carbon capture will make fossil fuel sourced hydrogen 2.5 to 9 times more expensive. So if you're making hydrogen from fossil fuels and you have to capture the pollution that fossil fuel is making, is going to be 2.5 to 9 times more expensive, which means not feasible.
Yeah, it seems like hydrogen has a lot of hurdles to overcome. You really have to make it with clean energy, but there's just so much power it needs. So I don't know. It remains to be seen, but it's not looking good right now for hydrogen. It's just seeming like it's too inefficient, and too difficult.
Brian, but hydrogen is booming. Investment is going right back into it like it was 20 years ago. Natural Resources Canada reveals the locations of 14 Tesla superchargers. That's 129 stalls in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. That's along the Yellowhead Highway in Saskatchewan. So they're putting millions of dollars into that, $5 million into Tesla chargers.
Yeah, this is a big deal because up until now, there was really no way for me to get from Regina to Edmonton without going through Calgary, which is like an extra 3 hours. So, this is a fantastic news for people in Saskatchewan and Alberta to be able to go between Saskatoon and Edmonton with a bunch of chargers, including there'll be 75% of these will be Tesla chargers, 25% will be CCS and CHAdeMO. Anything that gets federal funding for these charging stations, which in this case Tesla has gotten, they've gotten some federal funding for this, has to include universal chargers. So that's interesting.
So there'll be a Tesla charging station, but other cars will go there, like your Nissan Leafs and your Porsche and everything else can run in there and park beside the Teslas at a different stall. I assume all the Teslas will be together, and then there'll be a few, 25% of them will be non-Tesla. Interesting. It's the first time I've heard of a government supporting Tesla chargers, isn't it?
Yeah, as far as I know, Tesla has paid for them all themselves up until now. But this may be the reason for the delay, because we've been expecting Tesla superchargers on the Yellowhead Highway for a couple of years now, and it just seems like they're not coming. But maybe it's because they were waiting for the government subsidy before they could get started. Tesla likes to move quickly, and government does not.
That's the problem with these things. But it doesn't take years and years. It takes months, usually. Europe is halfway towards closing all coal power plants by 2030. Happy? Not happy. Tepid? How do you feel?
Yeah, that seems a bit late, but who knows? Maybe it'll speed up.
Pennsylvania is making the largest government solar commitment in the United States. The government will source 50% of its electricity from 7 new solar energy arrays. Any thoughts on that one? Probably not.
Not really. It's just we'll just see more and more solar, wind, and batteries as the time goes on.
So you know how the legacy energy sector has always got rosier forecasts than it turns out to be? Well, there could be a bubble created by that. That's something to look at, a story in the future. Lithium and other battery mineral exports make up 30 to 50% of the EV market in 2030. That's the upper limit. We talked about that, so I'm going to cut that out. Elon Musk's Starlink is coming to a country with one of the world's worst internet connections. It's the Philippines. Are you surprised by that? I thought the Philippines had a better connectivity than that, but they've got volcanoes there, so what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah. Volcanoes are always screwing up your Wi-Fi.
Well, you know what? They saw the Tesla someone spotted a Tesla Model S with the yolk steering wheel in Santa Cruz, California, and at Lake Tahoe. So what do you think of that? Do you think they're actually going to come out with that yolk steering wheel? Is it going to be legal?
Yeah, the rumor is that they are waiting for a regulatory approval, and that's why it's hasn't been seen officially yet. But yeah, there was a video online of how you shift gears in it, because of course they're trying to get rid of the gear shifting stock, so it's just going to know automatically which direct, like if you want to reverse or forward. But if it doesn't work, they've just got a swiping thing now on the touch screen. So if you want to go in reverse, you swipe it backwards, and if you want to go forward, you swipe it forward, and that's how you're going to manually change gears. But theoretically, it's going to read your mind and know it to begin with.
My mind can't be read. Lucid has sold out of the first version of its Air electric sedan. That's a luxury sedan with a crap load of range, but we're only talking about 500 cars. So, yeah, that's the first batch has gone to that. Tesla is going to launch its in-house insurance program in more states. Do you think that's going to be popular? Seems like it's working.
Yeah, the theory is that they'll be able to offer cheaper insurance because they have so much data on their own cars and your own driving habits of everybody. So, yeah, I expect this will be a bigger and bigger part of their business. Although, as is often the case where we live, there is a government monopoly for car insurance. So it's, never going to be available everywhere likely.
Senators are urging President Biden to have an end date for ICE vehicle sales. Do you think that he'll come up with that and a target date, or will that be too controversial in the States? Because they're begging for controversy down there. They're blaming stuff on his dog, for God's sake. We're back to that again, which is delightful to think that that's the biggest controversy is the president's dog.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. It's true. Like if he says something about the end of gas powered cars, it might become a huge scandal. So yeah, they have to be careful about what they say, not to make everybody think that he's crazy.
And finally, this week, small-town Michigan students are fundraising to add 30 kilowatts of solar, that's 3 times what I have, to their school. A group of students at a middle school and high school in East Jordan, Michigan, didn't like that their school runs on fossil fuels. And instead of just being sad about it, they decided to take matters in their own hands. And the plan was to raise funds, and it's going extremely well. The kids, I love that. I wish all kids would step up.
Well, I have something to add there. So I live a block away from Campbell Collegiate, which is where I graduated high school, and it's where my kids went. They put solar panels on the roof of Campbell Collegiate, I think about 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they're still up there. And it was a similar kind of thing. It was a fundraising thing. I think, the students were the driving force behind it. Now, it would have been 15 years ago. So, they would have been awfully expensive. And so they're probably not producing a huge amount of power. But, this is obviously should be the case for every school. There should be solar panels.
Well, how did that work? Because they didn't have there was no net metering program. Did they get a special exemption from the power utility or something? Or did they just use it during the day, just use it up?
Yeah, that would be my guess, that it was probably a special exemption. But yeah, on a institution like that, you'd probably be able to use all the power without ever, giving extra power to the grid. So, yeah. I'm not totally sure how it works.
All right, Brian, that's it for this week. Good news in climate this week. India is considering net zero by 2050. Britain is halfway to its carbon neutral by 2050 goal already. Friday for Future is returning to the streets. That's Greta Thunberg's protest. Italy to cut emissions by 60% by 2030. Nova Scotia is exiting coal by 2030. And Hungary is exiting coal by 2025. That's it for this week. See you again next week on the Clean Energy Show.
Yeah, see you next week.